Hi, folks. My name's Alana Dell. I'm here from Thematic. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for this conversation with Emily Sutton from Hopin. I'm the head of product marketing at Thematic. For some years, I worked in behavioral design, which gives me a unique perspective of the goals and challenges of product ops and how you all work together to help product managers evaluate and make decisions for making a better product. So today I'm here as a representative of Thematic. And what are we, or who are we? Well, we're a revolutionary feedback management system that helps product companies, product ops teams to easily bring customer needs and feedback into decision making so that you can make a better product more efficiently. I would like to introduce Emily Mabin Sutton. So Emily, if I could just get you to introduce yourself.
For sure. Thank you so much, Alana. Hi, I'm Emily. I've worked in product at 3 different unicorn SaaS companies over the last 7 years. I've championed Productops at Hopin most recently, and I love process improvement. My background is in biotechnology. I've also worked across translational AI, fintech, and music education.
Sure, that's great. It's a nice, diverse background. We're here today to talk about Hopin. Can you tell me a bit more about Hopin? What's Hopin's missions? What's it out to achieve?
Absolutely. We started out as a virtual event platform, and our mission is to help people feel closer through virtual and on-site events. It's grown exponentially since I joined, so from 70 employees to almost 1,000 now.
Wow.
And obviously the demand for virtual events during the pandemic just fueled this massive high growth curve and really rapid adoption of the product as well. With that increase in demand came a huge increase in customers and lots more feedback, which is why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's not just growth, that's hypergrowth.
Yeah.
So this trajectory that Hopin's been on, what's the future direction for Hopin?
Yeah, so now we're really focusing on broadening our offering out to any kind of event platform so that organizers can create any type of event and in any place. So they're able to have a flexible offering of on-site if they like, hybrid if they prefer, and fully virtual if they prefer.
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of considerations as you grow from a massively changing context and with a strong vision. And a number of different product managers coming on board, having to get on board very quickly. What are some of the primary considerations that you go through when you're designing a solution for event management?
Good question. Yeah, I think for us, our focus was always on usability. We had great feedback that attendees loved the experience, and it was super easy to connect and use the platform. And that applied to event management, my focus as well. So obviously, event managers have had to transition a huge amount, and I really admire and have a massive amount of admiration for event managers who did a huge pivot and went really outside of their comfort zone to dive into running virtual events during the pandemic. But it meant that we really wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with the tooling and that we made the platform really easy to understand and easy to run and monitor events with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess as from the early stage, you've got these users that are a lot of new users coming in with unfamiliar to the solution, and then some of those that came in the early stages, the hyper users. So there's quite a diverse group that you've got going on there. So you came in at a fairly early stage. What was it like being part of the Hopin team during this?
It's been crazy. I'm not going to lie. Everything has changed 100,000 times. I feel like my role is constantly changing. Things which worked last week just don't work anymore this week. I guess the one constant is that the team is amazing and really talented and very positive in the face of all of this constant change.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, today we are also here to talk about how you harness feedback as you go through this hyper growth. Can you tell me about how you operationalize feedback to?
Hard word.
Yeah, it is a hard word to drive feature development.
Yeah, for sure. So we started out collecting feature requests on Notion, which I love. It's really slick and easy to use. And And that was really great because we could have all this collaboration between lots of different team members, and cross-functionally people could submit requests and also follow the issue and follow the feature through its pathway and its journey to being shipped. But that really turned into chaos just as we scaled our team and as we had many more pods shipping products. So we did move to product board after that, where we collected a variety of feedback from lots of different channels. I worked with another PM to choose product board. We rapidly became overwhelmed by all the feature requests in there as well. So we haven't found the perfect solution from a feedback and roadmap management software toolings perspective, but I think the real challenge we faced, especially in those early days, was we had so few PMs and so much feedback. We had hundreds of team members contributing feedback from across the organization every week, and we had 10 PMs trying to filter through the information.
Yeah, wow. And it's when it's small and when you're close to the customer, or when you're in early days, it's the PMs are usually the fount of knowledge. They're the ones that understand the customer. They're strongly connected to what's needed, having conversations all the time. But as that customer base grows, that becomes more difficult to connect to customers and their feedback. So then you've got many more people that are connected to feedback and really become representatives of the voice of the customer. And it can be quite easy to get different voices of the customer, so to speak. So how do you help? You talked about going to, I think it was a team of 15 or 20. How do you help a team of that size to get an understanding of customer needs that's more unified, so you align?
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think there are lots of different methods for that. What I did is look at the aggregate data and do reports for all of our PMs. So I moved into creating kind of deep dives on overall customer summaries, how use cases expand and grow over time, how customers' attitudes to events have changed. And overall, I really, and just generally what drives our organizers, what they want to do in terms of creating events, and really helping as well in an alignment role. So I started reviewing features that were being created across. And so I think there are processes and then there's people. And so you need a mixture of both, obviously. I think trying to make sure that some people stay close to the customers. We also established a user research group around that same time. So we were able to have embedded user research people. However, I still think that we were missing part of the picture. And overall, it's really hard to make sure that you're removing the bias from your recommendations just because of the sheer volume that we were experiencing.
Yeah. So we often talk about that at Thematic, about this challenge that customers often come to us, that it's never been noisier. So you're not at the front line, and yet at the same time you need that feedback because it's rich and valuable. Product teams can easily get overwhelmed, and yet there's this tension because you need to harness the full view of feedback to get the practical value. I suppose that's a great lead in for how you came to us. I think I'll hand it over to you to tell that story.
Yeah, this is a total setup, but Thematic was really useful for us to help us understand the customer feedback at a broader quantitative level, because we had heaps of qualitative data. It came in from all sorts of different formats. It came in long form or a couple of sentences. Some were problem focused and framed, some were solution framed. I want this feature, our favorite in product. And some had a lot more context around the request, and others were more brief. So it was really useful for us to be able to just pull out all of the data, dump it to Thematic, and get really interesting metrics and analysis. And it meant that we could go back and focus on the why, not the what. So we were able to plan initiatives based on likely impact and really understand the priorities and track and understand the results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that when you first came to Thematic, a key thing was looking across the different pieces of feedback and the sheer volume of it. You mentioned you don't need to look at the what, but it was looking at the what, but at the same time looking at, okay, for that, why is it important, and how much impact does it have? So that you can then plan your initiatives based on likely impact. Is it be really helpful, I think, for everybody to talk about how that might help with dealing with the highest person's paid opinion in the room?
Yeah, absolutely. We all love a good hippo. So David, a colleague, and I prepared a voice of customer report, and he runs that every week now. And it listed the top pain points of all customers with an aggregation of number of customers affected. And I actually wanted to get all the way through to ARR as a proxy for overall value of that request. And so it was really useful to be able to show that report. And then when people had requests, they really needed to, we needed them to kind of argue or frame their request as, but is it this amount of ARR? Is it worth that much, or is it potentially less? So it gave us a lot more weight in our and confidence in those prioritizations. And it also meant that we were able to just actually see and forecast the value we would get from each of these features as well.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really helpful to be able to have a conversation where you can tie a feature to the ARR coming through, and very quickly gives you alignment. So that brings us to just a quick view of our screen here. So what we're looking at here is a very quick view of how Thematic discovers bottom up from the data sets that have come through what themes are emerging in your feedback. So you can quantify it in terms of customer count, but you can also look at it in terms of impact, and then just simply click through for all of the data that's coming in.
It doesn't make that noise.
It would be pretty wonderful if it did for something impactful. So the idea is that you can look at in Thematic at the viewpoint that you need for the stakeholder that you're reporting to. So whether you're looking at the high level for the base themes, or whether you want to share the stories themselves as they relate to the themes that have come up. I know that just sharing a little bit of context to how you use Thematic, that it's also used to discover themes that are emerging, or as you're dealing with new features that are rolling out, a product that's changing it and growing customers. It's really, you need a system that's flexible, that adapts very quickly to a changing product. And with Thematic, you're able to see, is some theme, is there an anomaly in how people are mentioning something? Even if it was very small, minor beforehand, is it shooting up? And we could see, for example, that suddenly over time, a theme was being mentioned a lot more, but we can also look at its impact on a score or a reviewer rating, for example. So we can quickly assess from our analytics tools the impact that it has. It would be great to get a view from you about how you might have used that, I think, to come through, which I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things we were really surprised about was actually this event announcement feature. It wasn't on the radar of our event management team as much as we just hadn't really seen it. It had popped up in product board a few times, but on Thematic, it actually came up really, really high up. I think it was because we were able to aggregate themes. So there were lots of different themes, which all, when you aggregated them together, and they were all associated with controlling attendee flow, which is what the problem the announcement tries to solve. We actually found out that the problem was much bigger than we thought. And I think the problem with just having this source of information or just kind of using CSMs is often if a customer is less vocal, you just don't have the representation from them as much. And you do have a lot of different sources of bias. So and also, trends do change much faster than we can process issues in product board. So it was amazing. It was great to hear that. And we prioritized it much higher, and it's now been released. So it's great to have this sort of real-time feedback on new and interesting feature requests that we can end up fixing faster and building.
Yeah, that's great. I have to say that for everybody watching, that we've been using the system, one of the systems today, in preparing for our talk, and I have to say you can see that the user experience really brought in how easy it is. Naturally, you sort of unexpectedly you find how easy it is to move around according to the different topics that you're dealing with in the different formats. So really does reflect that listening to customers. I think from here it'd be good chance to talk about our mission for Productops teams, because like it is, Productops is it's a relatively new role in smaller, certainly in smaller startups, and is being increasingly recognized. And we really are focused on helping product ops and product insights people to use feedback more efficiently. So to bring in customer needs and experiences in the most efficient way, to get a full view of the customer and to be able to identify what matters the most and why in the one platform. So we are increasingly focused on bringing in data from different sources, whether it's product board or your Zendesk tickets or conversations support desk, as well as your surveys. So more recently rather, in our development, we've been moving into Slack messages, for example, where customers might be having conversations there. So it's inefficient or very tricky to manage feedback from these different sources. And it's really important that you analyze customer feedback in a consistent way so that it can be compared across the different sources. And that's really what we want to also enable, is that a fair comparison regardless of the source, but also to be able to see what has someone got to say in an NPS survey versus someone coming through in our Zendesk tickets. Is there something that arises more in a different context, one or the other? I think, if handing it back to you, Emily, just for a moment, it would be really interesting if you'd have any recommendations to product ops people learning to use feedback at scale. As you scale, is there any recommendations that you would have for them?
I think just product people can't do that much manual work to get the insights over a long amount of time. You should be able to see, you should be able to ideally have quick ways of getting to the insights if you can. Just because it's good to listen to customer feedback, but really spending more time in customer interviews is overall a really great way to spend your time. And I think you get much more depth. And when it comes to qualitative, it's really great to see this type of stuff free us up to have more time to do kind of one-off personal chats instead. But the other thing is just like be really conscious of the amount of data or the fraction of data you're seeing. Like, what are you seeing and what are you not seeing based on how product managers are processing this feedback? Because it also can be quite easy to be blind to different sources, and we all hate bias, but we're all subject to it.
Yeah, for sure we are. So thank you very much, Emily. I think now's time we'll be ending the broadcast, but there'll be time for questions and answers. We look forward to chatting through those with you.
We sure do. Thanks, Alana.
Bye.